have I shared my take-home challenge with you that landed me a job offer? No, Jen, that's why I'm watching. Of course you are. And that's why we're here. Today, I'm going to walk you through what a take-home challenge is, things to consider when you're building your own take-home challenge, and I'm going to walk through my take-home challenge so you can see what I included and why. By the end of this video, you are going to know exactly how to create a take-home challenge that could lead you to a job offer. This one did for me. You'll know exactly what to put into a take-home challenge as a UX designer or a product designer. I am also going to give you a free checklist so that you know what to do and include in your next take-home challenge. But stay tuned. I'll get to that in a little bit. So let's level set a little bit on a take-home challenge. So what is this thing, this take-home challenge? Well, it's known by many things. Take-home challenge, take-home test, take-home exercise, take-home assignment. The one I did was known as a craft challenge. You know what? Call it whatever you want. It's still a take-home challenge. There are actually a lot of roles that require a take-home challenge. It's not just for UX designers. Coding is a common one. Developers have to do a take-home challenge. You could also have a take-home challenge as a UX researcher. Perhaps you need to create a research plan for an upcoming project. I've heard of take-home challenges for people in marketing to come up with a campaign, or writers to write and craft an email. So for this video, I'm going to focus on UX design and product design because that is what this design challenge was for. Now, I know I'm a researcher now, but I was going for a UX designer role when I did this craft challenge. My take-home challenge was for a UX designer position with an emphasis on UX research. So this role required not only for the person to be a UX designer, but have the understanding and potentially the ability to conduct user research. So what is this take-home challenge? Well, it is a way for hiring managers to assess if you can do the job. It is a way for them to determine if you have the skills to fill the role. Now, hiring managers want to see a fresh perspective. They don't necessarily want to see a project that has been done in the past. That's why you're getting a take-home challenge rather than showing a case study. You are given a certain amount of time to complete the ask, and it's specific to what they're asking you. So they're assessing if you can follow direction, if you can solve the problem, and if you can fill the role. Take-home challenges are controversial, no doubt, and I'm going to get into a little bit of the pros and cons of that a bit later. So before you build out your take-home assignment, I want you to consider a few. First and foremost, your top goal is to align solving the problem that you are given to what the job role requires. So you should be looking at the job description, seeing the things that they are looking for in this role, and making sure you are doing your best to illustrate that you can do these things through your take-home assignment. That is job number one. Another thing I want you to consider is, what does the hiring manager find important? This can come from the job description, or it can come from an interview with them, or maybe the recruiter could give you a little bit of insight. Are you getting hired based on UI or visual design skills? Are you getting hired based on your ability to conduct user research and implement those learnings into your design? Are you being hired for problem solving? You know, those wicked problems that some corporations have you solve as a UX designer. Do you feel like it's important that you know how to speak the business language? Is this something that you should illustrate your adaptability to do when you are sharing your take-home challenge? It's okay to ask some clarifying questions before you actually get started. You want to make sure you are clear on the problem that they give you to try to solve. If you have any questions about that, it's okay to seek clarity. Don't guess. Get a little bit more information about who your users are. Is it everyone that uses this product? Is it everyone at the company? Is it every customer? Or is it a niche or a specific role that might be a potential user of this product? See if you can flesh out some constraints and timelines. And it doesn't hurt to confirm what format they're looking for. The take-home challenge I want to share with you was just a PDF, which should be fine. But sometimes they might want a website or some sort of interactive component. Maybe they want it to be mobile friendly. I don't know, but just confirm that you know what format you should be building this take-home challenge in. Here's a few more hot tips to consider as you are presenting your take-home challenge. First, make sure you lay out the problem that you're trying to solve. Everyone should be on the same page about what this project is about. Next, it's okay to mention the scope and the constraints that you had through doing this project. You may have only had a few hours or days to complete this. You may have limited knowledge about the product or the internal workings of a company, and that's okay. It's okay to acknowledge that and kind of set the standard so they understand you are facing some constraints. You also want to be ready to articulate your decisions. Why did you do the things that you did? What is it based on? And you may not have to actually address all of these things, but as you're building out your take-home challenge, think about potential questions they might ask you for every single thing that you show them. Why did you do this? Would you take another approach? Why were you limited on this? What else would you do? How would you research this? How did you get to this conclusion? These are all potential questions they might ask for every single page or component of your take-home challenge. Be ready to answer those, to show that you have thoroughly thought through what you have prepared. Again, this could be just a little side note, just in case. Hopefully they won't ask you these things, but you never know. And it's helpful to be prepared. Here are a few other things that you could say that you would consider if you were designing this in real life. You could talk about things like KPIs, success metrics, business goals, vendor dependencies, accessibility, and cross-functional team involvement. You could also mention that you are thinking about other things as you're designing a solution. For example, you would want to know KPIs and how your work ladders up to that, or business goals, or success metrics. You could also talk about how there could be dependencies if part of your product is dependent on other vendors or third-party products. Then there might be some constraints on what you actually can build. Being aware of that is really important. Also, you can talk about interacting with a cross-functional team. Depending on the size of the company, this particular company was very large, so they probably have dedicated content strategists and researchers and developers. And you would talk about, as the product designer, how you would interact with those different people and how your relationships could get built by collaborating with people in different roles. Working in a cross-functional team and illustrating that you know how to do that is a good trait to have when you're in your job interview. And then finally, you could mention that you have considered accessibility concerns. You're thinking about making sure that the designs are compliant, high contrast, and other accessibility items. You are considering accessibility to make sure that your designs and solutions are inclusive of everyone. Before I jump into my take-home challenge, I want to tell you about my free checklist that I'm going to offer to you. This free bonus is a master checklist that you can use to make sure that you have all the components you need in your next take-home challenge. If you just put checklist in a comment below, that's right, just drop the word checklist and I will send that over to you. Let me walk you through my take-home challenge, or as Intuit called it, the craft challenge that led to a job offer. This is the opening page. Let me walk through what I put on here because it's all intentional. I included the company name, the title of the challenge. They called it a craft challenge. And I also put the problem I was trying to solve, which is reducing American debt. I also included a couple of screenshots of the designs, both wireframe and high fidelity, just to kind of tease them and get them excited about what we were going to be diving into as I walked them through this take-home challenge. I encourage you, and I like to do this myself, to include your name at the bottom of every page. So this was the challenge. This was the problem that they gave me to solve. Let me walk you through this. Help Americans reduce their debt. The ask was to design a solution to help reduce debt. And how you would do that is to use a product within the Intuit ecosystem to help solve that problem. In other words, what products that Intuit already owns could be leveraged to help solve debt. Finally, you needed to illustrate that your solution was actually solving the problem. So I started with a very high level of what my UX process is, because there are some people who believe that UX design is strictly visual design or UI design. And I wanted to show I'm actually I won't call it full stack because I'm not. I don't do well at development and code. But I am research focused with design emphasis, which is what this role was. So I wanted to show that I use research to inform my design. I conduct UX design and again, use research to evaluate my design decision. I wanted to show at a very high level what my UX process is. Because I am not just a UI or visual designer going for this role. I want to emphasize that I also can conduct initial or discovery research to inform designs, as well as validate my designs through testing. So what I did was conduct some very basic desk research to define what is debt in America. What does that actually mean? What are some numbers behind this? So I did some quick secondary desk research. Now, ChatGPT did not exist when I did this take-home challenge, but you could definitely use ChatGPT to help you come up with some statistics and some information to show that you are trying to learn about the problem you are trying to solve. I'm trying to get my head around what's this look like? What are these numbers? What's the debt look like for America? And so be sure to cite your source when you do something like this. But this was illustrating that, hey, I can do a little bit of legwork to try to understand the problem a little bit more than what the business might think that it is. Speaking of business, I wanted to talk about what I think the business might be assuming. I don't think that you see this a lot. And I wanted to take the opportunity to surface some assumptions because they happen a lot. For example, the business assumes that people have debt that use their products. Well, that might not necessarily be true. The business might assume that consumers want to use their product to help them get out of debt. That too might not be completely true. By surfacing business assumptions, I'm telling my potential hiring manager that we have an opportunity to do some research to make sure that we are solving the right problem. Also, I want to talk about what the user might have assumptions around. I kind of put this into a scenario. The person wants to buy a condo, but they also have debt. This makes it a little bit more realistic. Now we understand a person is trying to do a thing. They have a goal, but they've got a problem. And the problem is they have debt. And so what I'm showing here is these are the kinds of things that the person might or might not want to do. For example, maybe they want professional help to get out of debt. We need to explore that. Or just the opposite. Maybe they want self-service where they don't have to deal with anybody else. How much level of control do they want over their finances? Again, just like the business assumption, these user assumptions are opportunities to do research, to really understand, are we on the right path to building the right solution? Remember, the original ask was to find a product within the Intuit ecosystem that might fit this goal of solving debt. So what do? I'm looking at the different products that Intuit has. Now, I know Mint is no longer here on the planet, but at the time, this is what was in Intuit's portfolio. So what I'm looking at here is, what are all the different products? What are they doing? What are their strengths and weaknesses when it comes to solving this problem of helping people with their debt? And so looking at these different products in this competitive way helped me to narrow down the selection that I made where I was going to put my solution. Not only did I look at internal Intuit products, but I did a competitive analysis as well. I think this is a great starting point whenever you're working on a product, kind of get a feel of what's going on out in the real world. I'm not saying they are always great solution or the best solution, but it is a good place to start. So I started to look at who are the competitors, what are they offering, what are they doing well, what could they improve upon, and this is a great way to determine the direction that our product could go. You got to kind of know what you're competing against in order to know how to make your own experience that much better. So my final choice was Credit Karma, and I had reasons for that. This was before Mint was going away, but because I knew that Credit Karma was a recent acquisition at Intuit, I knew, or I assumed, that they were looking for opportunities to grow this product. So I chose that partially for that reason, but also through my product comparison, this product had the best opportunity to help an individual person fix their debt. A lot of Intuit products are professional grade products, which aren't applicable to an individual person to reducing their debt. And so I went with Credit Karma and I said, why? Everything goes to a user trying to do a thing, right? A product like this will not exist if a person isn't trying to do something in this product. So my goal was to bring it back to the user at this point and talk about what this person is trying to do. So I created a scenario. I won't call this a persona because it is absolutely not based on research. This is totally made up of how I saw the state of debt in one person's scenario. So this person, they want to buy a condo, but they have credit card debt, they have student loan, and they have a car loan. So they have multiple points of debt. And I wanted to paint a picture because I want to illustrate that not only does this person want to reduce their debt, but they have a goal. They want to buy something. It's very challenging to save toward a goal and to reduce your debt at the same time. I wanted to paint a picture about a real person and what that might look like. Notice I don't have any demographic information. I don't have how old they are, where they live, or anything like that. Doesn't matter. What matters is, what is this person trying to do? What are the circumstances around this person that we can solve design challenges for? This is the level of detail that a product designer can make decisions upon when building a solution. Like I said, it all centers around a person doing a thing. So I had a mini user flow. Obviously, this person will have to log in or create an account. And what are they looking for? What are some of the opportunities that we can give them as they go through this experience? For this particular case, I'm showcasing opportunities throughout all my solutions. And here, how can we educate them? How can we help them reduce debt? What value can this app have in solving that problem? Always showcasing opportunities that we would explore in this craft challenge or take-home challenge. I'm looking at some things that we could be thinking about including in our experience, whether that be live chat or resources or education or nudges. Think about what you have to do without actually having to subscribe the design solution. A lot of things start off with just a broad concept, and then you explore particular aspects that you'd like to dive deeper. Remember, this is a take-home challenge. And for this particular take-home challenge, they told me, spend 4 to 5 hours on it. Truthfully, probably spent a little closer to 20 hours on it. Should I have done that? We can talk about that later. But the point is, you've got to reduce the scope. You can't do all the things. So you can talk about, I would explore these things, but you're not going to be able to do all of that in a take home challenge. So refining a little bit more, I talked about the opportunities. Now, how might we as a product team solve some of these problems? What can we do in our app to help reduce American debt? Like I mentioned, there's education opportunities. We can give them a calculator. The scenario I illustrated, that person had debt from multiple places: car loan, auto loan, credit card. Do they know that the debt is really that spread apart? Do they really know what their financial picture is? Maybe they don't. And maybe we can really help them consolidate and see what's going on. And a calculator or some other tool might help them see that bigger picture of their debt. If a person is in debt, it might not be the best option to have them get another credit card or a loan. Yes, I know that sometimes loans have a reduced interest rate, but think about what this person actually needs to solve their problem, and don't offer products and solutions from a business sense that don't actually solve that problem. So be considerate when you're offering information or suggestions that they're actually helpful for the experience. So I started with sketching, and I know that sketching is a little bit of a lost art form. A lot of people don't do sketching, they just jump right into Figma. But the value of sketching is that it is a very quick way to get ideas out of your head and onto paper. They can be a great conversation starter to make sure that you're even aligned to where things should go. So I started with sketching. And I'm obviously not going to be able to do all of these things because my scope is really tight. I wanted to show that I can explore several ideas quickly. Then we can narrow in the scope and figure out where we want to dive deeper. I had to tighten the scope, though. I'm not going to be able to do all the things in 4 to 5 hours, not even 20 hours. Through sketching, I could show I was thinking about different aspects of this problem to solve without diving into Figma and building everything out. So I encourage you to start with sketching every time. I know that there are plenty of hiring managers that appreciate that you are exploring and iterating before diving into one solution. And sketches are a great way to show that. Next thing, I like to bump up the fidelity a little bit and go to wireframes. Now, what is so great about wireframes is people understand that these are not finished products. You're obviously not going to release a product in gray and black and white boxes with no true images in them. Wireframes are a great way to have a conversation because high-res mockups could imply that things are close to done, and people might not provide the right level of feedback. People might be hesitant to provide feedback on high-res mockups. So I think wireframes are a great fidelity to communicate the words, the structure, basics of what you're thinking about when it comes to designing a solution. So that was my next level, wireframes. I bet you're expecting to see high-res mockups at this point, aren't you? Of course you are. Well, I wanted to throw a little bit of a loop because what I wanted to show is it is a natural progression to go from sketching to wireframes to high-res mockups and just continuing to design. But I wanted to show the value of taking a pause and thinking about potential research opportunities. I wanted to show that, yes, I am very limited in scope and I'm thinking about a lot of things, but I'm not forgetting that I don't have the answers to a lot. I need data to inform my design decisions. As I'm thinking about these problems, I'm thinking about where we have gaps in knowledge and where we could be conducting some research. Not only generative research, but also evaluative research. I want us to be thinking about what gaps in knowledge do we have and where there are strong research opportunities. Where can we explore more before building this product to make sure that we are building the right thing? So I'm taking a pause here. So I'm saying I'm taking a break from the designs to think about what do we not know at this point. So that's the discovery research or the generative research. Yes, I'm a UX designer, but I'm also going to be testing my designs. I like the term evaluate my design instead of the term validate. Because validate to me says, I'm just trying to prove myself right. I'm trying to validate that I'm going in the right direction. But if you think of your designs as something that can be evaluated, you're more open to getting feedback. It might not be aligned with where you think your designs are going. So I wanted to take a pause and just show the hiring manager that, hey, I'm thinking about research too. Then on to the expected mockups. Here we are. And again, because the scope is so limited, I wanted to design a few key screens to show I can do the visual design. I can stick within your style. Now, granted, I didn't have access to their style guide, but I got the idea enough to know what fonts, what colors, what their structure was like, and to show them that I can design within the constraints that they have established for their product. But also showing here are some of my ideas in high-res Fidelity so that you can understand where I'm going with potential solutions. Now, to wrap up, I wanted to reiterate what my whole process is. I know I talked about it a little bit at the beginning with research, design, and validate, but this is an opportunity for me to say, see, I just went through my whole process and showed you what I do as a UX designer. The really cool thing is I have this and more in a checklist free for you to use in your next take-home challenge. And this checklist has the components that led to a job offer. So write the word checklist in a comment and I will send you that free checklist right over. And that's my walkthrough of a take-home challenge that led to an actual job offer at a major financial institution. Wait, I have a few more hot tips for you when it comes to take-home challenges. First, let me talk about what I learned from this experience. They say 4 or 5 hours. It's going to take more time than you want to. It was also really tough to not get caught up in scope creep and try to include all the things. I knew that I think it was either 20 or 30 minutes to present this. So I had to be concise with what I was sharing and the storytelling aspects of what I did and why. I wanted to illustrate, and this is really important with a take-home challenge or a case study, illustrate your skills and tell them what you did and why, because you want them to see that you can do the job role. So some lessons that I learned from this is that you really have to be strict on your time and not let things get out of control with scope creep. It's not going to be as perfect as you want it to be. I understand this is a job interview. You want to do your best, but you really have to keep the scope and the length contained. I had about 20 or 30 minutes to share this, so I needed to make sure that I could tell a good story and illustrate my skills in that small time span. Take-home challenges is a pretty controversial subject these days, and some would argue there are some pros and there are some cons to having them as part of the hiring process. The good thing about a take-home challenge is mostly for hiring managers, to be honest. They are giving you this assignment to see if you can do the work, if your skills really add up to what you say they are. They are trying to see if you can meet the ask of solving a problem. They want to see your problem-solving skills. They want to see your critical thinking. They want to see if you can do what you are assigned. Also, if they're giving a take-home challenge, they're probably giving it to multiple candidates. So it's a way for them to standardize what they're comparing. Maybe that's helpful for hiring managers to be looking at the same type of content, the same problem to solve, and evaluating that way rather than multiple different things to compare and contrast. A take-home challenge, when you're presenting it, also illustrates your communication skills and your presentation skills. So this is a way for them to flesh out how well you can do sharing your work. I think the cons of a take-home challenge fall mostly with the person who has to take the challenge. Now, you know that this is with Intuit, and they asked me to think about a problem to solve within their ecosystem. Some might view this as spec work. I might agree. And some might walk away from something like this. And that's a fair choice to make. I chose to go ahead and go with it because I wanted to try out for the job. But fundamentally, I think that when a company asks you to do work on existing projects, that's not good. So if I were to do this today, I would maybe question whether I should move forward working on a project that aligns with their existing products and services. Another negative aspect of take-home challenges is it's unpaid. These are going to be hours of your time you're never going to get back, and you're never going to get paid for it. So you need to consider if this is a valuable use of your time and your efforts. And by completing a take-home challenge, there's no guarantee you're actually going to get a job. A lot of times you're guessing. You're guessing what the hiring manager is looking for. What do they really want? Do they want to see visual design? Do they want to see that I know research as well? What are they looking for? You don't really know a lot of the times. So you're kind of guessing. You don't know the exact criteria that hiring manager is considering when they're looking at your work. A lot of the times you're doing a best guess as to what content to include in a take-home challenge. And then finally, a take-home challenge is not like a real job. You're not going to get a brand new assignment like this and be asked to solve this problem in 4 to 5 hours. Is it really fair to assess somebody's skills on an unrealistic process? I have a few more quick tips when it comes to conquering that take-home challenge. Okay, so you got one, but don't freak out. I know they're the worst. I hate them. They're just as bad as whiteboard challenges, but don't freak out. You've got this. Got this handy checklist to help you get through this. Calm. Next, time box. You have to determine how much time you're going to devote to this, and you may not get as thoroughly complete as you hoped, and that's okay because you're doing this for free, and this is only for a potential job offer. So you're going to give the best that you can in the amount of time that you are willing to give. And you know what? Don't get too creative when it comes to especially building out interfaces. Use standard components and interaction patterns to show that you really know the industry standard. I'm not saying that they have to be boring, but don't get too creative because creativity takes time. And you don't have time. You've got to keep your time boxed. The way the job market is these days is there's a lot of focus on visual design. I know that my take-home challenge showed some sketching and some wireframes and research, but that was because the role asked for more research-heavy thought behind it. This was a role that was a UX designer, but with an emphasis on UX research. If your role, the one you're going for, has nothing to do with research and they're really looking for a visual designer, make sure that your take-home challenge showcases how great your visual design skills are. I know that's a high demand in the market right now, and that might be a modification of what I did in my take-home challenge to what you need to do in yours. You might need to focus more on UI design and visual design. I'm also going to encourage you to briefly illustrate what your process is. Your take-home challenge should be organized to show a bit of a flow of what your UX process is. And finally, my last tip is to practice. You've designed it, you've laid it out, you're going to share it with the hiring manager and their team. Practice multiple times. It's funny how things sound in your head, but then when you say them out loud, they're totally different. So practice what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, many times. And remember, have that little side note of how you came to the design decisions that you did in case they ask you. They ask you about how you would do this differently or why did you do things this way. Be prepared to answer those questions. I have one more hot tip for you. If you want your next take-home challenge to lead to a job offer, grab my free checklist to help ensure that you are on the right track to building that awesome take-home challenge. Good luck.